An unexpected dip in the U.S. unemployment rate dominated financial news on Friday and changed the message and policy outlook for both President Obama and Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke. Hans Nichols is at the White House. With me here is Bloomberg's Scott Lemon, who covers the Fed and the economy for us. Scott, unemployment rate actually went down. Are we in Fat City now?
Well, the U.S. economy is still bleeding. It's just not that much of a gusher anymore. The reason the unemployment rate came down is because 420,000 people actually dropped out of the labor force.
Stopped looking.
And it stopped looking for jobs, and the number of unemployed went down at a slower pace. So that's why you had that dip in the unemployment rate. But it's still 250,000 more people out of work, and that is not the greatest sign, but it's more positive than what we've seen in recent months.
Has joblessness peaked, or is it likely to go back up? The rate likely to go back up?
It has not necessarily peaked, Al. One thing that happens when the economy recovers is that more people come back into the labor force looking for jobs. That could push the unemployment rate back up.
So we still could hit double digits.
Definitely,
10%, as Barack Obama said we probably would.
Yeah.
Hans, what's the take from the White House and what's the spin?
Well, privately, there are a lot of I told you so's. Publicly, there's stoicism. White House is very aware if they live by good numbers, even a marginally good number like this one, that they'll die by good numbers, bad numbers, even if it's just marginal. So what they spent all week doing was trying to prepare the public for what they would get either way. Christina Romer earlier in the week was out there talking, giving a big economic speech, and the president hit the road, went to Indiana, talked about this in the broader context. And the president's message there is the stimulus is working, but also be patient. That's what they want from this. That's what they want for these next few months, patience from the American public.
Well, that was a pretty good message in Elkhart because it's a place that's still in bad shape, but a little bit better than it was when he was last there. Yeah. Where else is he going, and will that message be the same?
Well, this weekend he's off to Guadalajara, Mexico, for the summit of North America's leaders, the Three Amigos meeting, as they call it. Now, the emphasis there will be on trade and the importance to keep trade flowing to keep the economies and get the economies rebounded. That's a message that will be popular with his counterparts in Guadalajara. It's less popular with his congressional Democrats back on Capitol Hill. And then right when he gets back, he'll go to New Hampshire for Portsmouth for a town hall meeting. And then the following week, he'll be off in Montana in Senator Baucus's state there for a conversation that we can expect will probably not be about ranching.
Hans, how does he tie this into health care? And also, there seems to be a bit of a mixed message problem. In our interview with Senator Durbin, afterwards his office called and said there was a miscommunications and the White House really didn't say there was no binding drug deal. What is the deal?
Well, the deal from the White House is that they will do their best to hold the line. That's the assurances that they've given pharma, that they'll try to hold the line at $80 billion. Now, the problem is the House and the Senate feels like they're
$80 billion of cost cuts for the
$80 billion cost cuts for the drug companies. What this really underscores is that a lot of the deals going on right now are in the Senate Finance Committee. Right. I mean, it's the Senate. They haven't even introduced the bill, it hasn't gotten out of the committee, but it's really being considered as the conference committee report. And on some of the pharma stuff, Waxman, at least the White House believes that Waxman's accepted that number and that he'll go along with whatever they end up doing in the Senate.
Let me come back to Scott. All this bad stuff about the economy, yet Standard & Poor's soared above 1,000 this week. Index for the first time, I think, since November. Why? What do these investors see that's so good?
Company profits are coming in better than expected. Even though profits are actually falling at companies all over the country, they're coming in a little bit better than expected. At the same time, you actually have the stock index trading at a ratio of more than 18 times earnings, and that's one of the most expensive times for the stock market in 4.5 years. So, it stands to be seen what's going to happen.
Speaking of markets, the Federal Reserve, 2 days of meetings next Wednesday. Tuesday and Wednesday. What are central bank watchers looking for?
Well, if you remember, they cut interest rates almost to zero in December. Started purchasing $300 billion of treasuries in March. That program is set to expire in September. A lot of people think they have to make a decision on that next week, and some prominent Fed watchers, Larry Meyer, Lyle Gramley, are saying that they will let that program run out in September.
All right, this is a town of acronyms. There's TARP and there's TALF. TALF is a big deal at the Fed. What's the Fed going to do with it?
TALF is the program they started in March to help restart credit markets in conjunction with the Obama administration trying to lower interest rates. The commercial real estate industry is pressing the Fed And lawmakers are also doing that
lawmakers like Barney Frank.
Barney Frank, Paul Kanjorski, to extend that program for another year through the end of December 2010. They say that's really important for commercial real estate where values are plunging.
That's not a decision that has to be made at next week's meeting, however, is it?
Not necessarily, but people think they're going to extend it. It just might not happen right away.
Okay. Hans, back to the White House. All the polls seem to be heading south on both Obama, his job performance, and his policies. Is that a real concern, or do they think this is natural and can be reversed?
Well, they don't think it's going to be reversed. They think it's going to get worse before it gets better, especially this August when Congress is the one out there talking about health care. Congress owns the issue. They saw that with the stimulus. The minute it was handed off to Congress, public support for it dropped. So the White House is a little annoyed with the House and the Senate for not getting their act together and moving more quickly, particularly with the Senate. Now, with that euthanasia aspect, they think the White House thinks that's actually pretty damaging and that it's getting some real traction and it's causing problems for them. So
let me just quickly point out to our viewers, the euthanasia is a total canard that's being perpetrated by some critics saying that the bills force seniors to go in and engage in euthanasia. In fact, it doesn't do that, Hans. What it is a provision that says voluntarily, if you like, you can go in and have an end-of-life consultation, the way many of us do, anyway, except we pay a lot for it.
The clear exegesis that you just gave there is something the White House is annoyed with Congress for not giving themselves.
Right.
And that's why they feel like they're behind the issue on this.
And they're beginning this fight the smear campaign. It'll be interesting to see how that works. Hans Nichols in the White House, thank you. Scott Lamon on the economy, fairly good news for economic watchers, thank you. And